Hi guys, I hope the audio is fine now. Hmm. Hi guys, I hope the audio is Yeah, it's fine now. Okay, if anyone joins, let me know in the comment section. I'm just still checking my audio. Studio mode, advanced audio properties, monitor off. Yeah, okay, everything seems to be fine. So today I decided to not discuss India, that is Bharat. We will get to that again tomorrow or day after tomorrow. But I decided to go ahead with the book called The True Believer because it's an extremely fun political book to read. That's hardly a term you can ever use to describe any book of non-fiction or anything remotely political or especially politico-philosophical book. But this book is extremely fun because no matter which side you are on any topic, be it left, right, civilization, nation, or even any gender, any mass movement or individualism, group rights, anything, you can you can always notice something fun being said about your side being appreciated, and your side being criticized, and also honest facts about your side, no matter which side you are on. So this book is basically written like a research paper, but in an extremely approachable, accessible, and lucid writing style. You will feel like you are talking to someone, or someone is talking to you and explaining to you these things in casual terminologies and casual phrases. So let's read the preface. It's a very small preface. After that, we'll get into the book. It has a pretty humorous tone, and at times it gets real serious and sounds extremely pissed off, and that sometimes it seems to be that the author is amused by a particular action or way of thinking from a mass movement. So this book deals with some peculiarities which are common to all mass movements, be they religious movements or social revolutions or nationalist movements. It does not maintain that all movements are identical. This book does not say that all movements are identical, but that they do share certain essential characteristics which give them a family likeness, a familialness to all mass movements, no matter what the cause, left, right, good, bad, anything. There are some common characteristics which are universal to mass movements, and that is the basic topic of this book. All mass movements generate in their adherents, the people who follow that mass movement, what do they generate in them? A readiness to die and a proclivity for united action. All of them, irrespective of this book is also important especially for anyone on the Hindutva side, because they get to understand exactly how much is Hindutva politics today a mass movement, and how much it is not a mass movement. You'll get to analyze both things, because you'll understand that there's so much to be done, and some has been accomplished, and you could also say that the pitfalls of mass movement, we also get to avoid that because we don't have such a strong mass movement as of yet. That's my understanding of the book. I've read halfway, so I'm having a lot of fun. So especially because I'm getting to read this from the beginning while I'm also parallelly reading from the second half of the book. So all mass movements generate in their adherents a readiness to die and a proclivity for united action. All of them, irrespective of the doctrine they preach and the program they project, or no matter what choice on those topics, they definitely breed fanaticism and enthusiasm and fervent hope and a hatred and intolerance. All of them are capable of releasing a powerful flow of activity in certain departments of life. And hatred and intolerance here is basically a neutral term, because the way it has been discussed, the way mass movements have been discussed in this book, I've come to realize that hatred and intolerance here might as well mean a compliment, because if it's hatred and intolerance to something bad, so they have room for that kind of nuance in this book. All of them are capable of releasing a powerful flow of activity in certain departments of life. All of them demand blind faith and single-hearted allegiance. And that is a basic criteria of mass movement, and you are free to now draw your conclusions whether then Hindutva is a mass movement at all. All movements, however, different in doctrine and aspiration, no matter how much they're different in doctrine and aspiration, they draw their early adherents, early followers from the same types of humanity. They all appeal to the same types of mind. Therefore, all mass movements on one side and things that are not mass movements on the other side. That's the binary this book is approaching with. Though there are obvious differences between the fanatical Christian, the fanatical Mohammedan, the fanatical nationalist, the fanatical communist, and the fanatical Nazi, it is yet true, even then, it is true that the fanaticism which animates them may be viewed and treated as one. In some ways, their fanaticism between all these groups is essentially the same. The same is true of the force which drives them onto expansion and world dominion. There is a certain uniformity in all types of dedication, of faith, of pursuit of power, of unity, and of self-sacrifice. There are vast differences in the contents of holy causes and doctrines which these mass movements follow, but a certain uniformity in the factors which makes them effective. He who, like Pascal, finds precise reasons for the effectiveness of Christian doctrine has also found the reasons for the effectiveness of communist, Nazi, and nationalist doctrine. However different the holy causes people die for, they perhaps die basically for the same thing. And what all are the things that might be that same thing will be discussed in detail in this book. This book concerns itself chiefly with the active and revivalist phase of mass movements. They always seem to be reviving something. This phase is dominated by the true believer, the man of fanatical faith who is ready to sacrifice his life for a holy cause, and an attempt is made to trace his genesis and outline his nature. That is the attempt that has been made in this book. As an aid in this effort, as an additional help in this effort, we made use of a working hypothesis, drawing a basic conclusion to start with. Starting out from the fact that who are the frustrated people, will define that in a little while. It does not have to be a negative term. That has been explained later in the book. I'll just read out that part as well. Starting out from the fact that those people who are frustrated, they predominate among the early followers of all mass movements, and that they usually join of their own accord, out of their own efforts. It is assumed on the basis of this hypothesis that frustration by itself, without any proselytizing or prompting from the outside, even without that kind of proselytization, frustration can generate most of the peculiar characteristics of the true believer. And secondly, that an effective technique of conversion consists basically in the inculcation and fixation of proclivities and responses indigenous to the frustrated mind. Okay, this is a hilarious point. Their second conclusion in this working hypothesis is that what is the effective technique for converting such minds into a mass movement? So any effective technique for a conversion of this kind consists basically in the inculcation and fixation of proclivities and responses. Those techniques of conversion have the inculcation and fixation of proclivities. Okay, they have a fixation of certain proclivities and their responses, which are only found in the frustrated mind. Those are the kinds of things that are effective kind of the effective side of any conversion technique. To test the validity of these assumptions, it was necessary, so they drew these assumptions, and then they have to justify why they did these assumptions. To test the validity of these assumptions, it was necessary to inquire into the ills, the bad things, and that afflict the frustrated. What are the problems that the so-called frustrated feel or face? How they react against those ills or those problems? The degree to which these reactions correspond to the responses of the true believer. Okay, the degree to which the reactions of any frustrated in any situation how are they related to the true believer of any mass movement? And then finally, it was necessary to inquire. They were giving out a list, and the last point in that list is that, and finally, the manner in which these reactions can facilitate the rise and spread of a mass movement. The reactions to those problems by the frustrated can facilitate the rise and spread of a mass movement. Now let's just clear this thing out, that what is meant by the word frustrated. So they give a note here that says that the word frustrated is not used in this book as a clinical term. It's not a disease kind of a negative term here, that wo bada frustrated banda tha and all. The word frustrated is not used in this book as a clinical term. It denotes here people who, for one reason or another, feel that their lives are spoiled or wasted. ये जो भी सोचता है, anyone can have that. Any truly someone in truly a bit of problem and someone faking a problem, all of them can be frustrated. So those are the kinds of people we are discussing here when we say frustrated. It's not an evil term. Hello Ashish, hi. Hope you will listen to it from the beginning only. We'll just do the preface today. Because even the preface is pretty fun and makes you think a lot. And finally, the manner in which these reactions can facilitate the rise and spread of a mass movement. Which reactions? The reactions which are given by a frustrated to their life's problems. It was also necessary to examine the practices of contemporary movements, the movements which were going on when this book was being written. This book was written in 1951, okay? In that context. It was also necessary to examine the practices of contemporary movements where successful techniques of conversion of people into believers in mass movements. So, where successful techniques of conversion had been perfected and applied in order to discover whether they corroborate, that has been applied here in this book, in order to discover whether they corroborate the view that a proselytizing mass movement, people who are approaching someone to convert to their mass movement, they deliberately foster this particular capability in their followers, which is a frustrated state of mind, and also that it automatically advances its interest when it agrees with the propensities of the frustrated. That is a huge important point. Are there any lags? Is it streaming in full HD? Yeah, it seems to. Okay. It is necessary for most of us these days to have some insight into the motives and responses of the true believer. For though ours is a godless age, everyone seems to have become an atheist, it is the very opposite of irreligious. The true believer is everywhere on the march. And both by converting and antagonizing, he is shaping the world in his own image. Even though it's a godless age, our age is the very opposite of irreligious. And whether we are to line up with him or against him, such a true believer, it is well that we should know all we can concerning his nature and potentialities. This line probably sums up why I am discussing this book in my memberships only live stream. Why is it important and relevant to a Hindutva discussion YouTube channel like mine? Even whether we are to line up with or against a true believer, it doesn't matter whether you are against such a person. It is important for you to know who that kind of person might be. It is well that we should know all we can concerning his nature and potentialities, and then also you will be able to understand whether you do have a true believer who believes in the cause you think they believe or not. It is perhaps not superfluous to add a word of caution. When we speak of the family likeness of mass movements, when we say that all mass movements are similar in some ways, we use the word family in a taxonomical sense. The tomato and the nightshade are of the same family, the Solanaceae, though the one is nutritious and the other poisonous. Nightshade is another fruit. Both are of the same kind of family in the scientific world, in the biological world, in the natural world, though one is nutritious and the other is poisonous, even then they have many morphological, anatomical and physiological traits in common, so that even the non-botanist senses a family likeness, that they are kind of similar. The assumption that mass movements have many traits in common does not imply that all movements are equally beneficent or poisonous. So just because these mass movements are similar in some ways, in a lot of ways, doesn't mean that all of them are equally good or equally bad. No, that's not the case here. That's not the case being made in the book, and that is why this book makes for such meaningful and constructive reading. The book passes no judgments, and actually doesn't. The assumption that mass movements have many traits in common does not imply that all movements are equally beneficent or poisonous. The book passes no judgments and expresses no preferences. It merely tries to explain, and the explanations, all of them theories, are in the nature of suggestions and arguments, that's all. Even when they are stated in what seems a categorical tone, even if they seem to be in a categorical tone, it's not meant to be that way. It's not meant to be a judgmental criticism. It's merely meant to be an observation or a suggestion. I can do no better than quote Montaigne. This is author Eric Hoffer saying that, I want to quote Montaigne here at the end of this preface by saying that all I say is by way of discourse and nothing by way of advice. All of them theories are in the nature of suggestions and arguments, even when they are stated in what seems a categorical tone. All I say is by way of discourse and nothing by way of advice. I should not speak so boldly if it were my due to be believed. All I'm saying is discourse and not really advice. Don't think of this as a recommendation, just my observances. And the next live stream, this will be a short live stream. How long did we go? So next live stream, when we do a membership live stream, we will do again India that is Bharat, and after that we will start with chapter 1 of this book. The first chapter is called The Desire for Change, how a mass movement begins. Okay, thank you guys.